Welcome everyone. How's everybody doing? There we go. Alrighty. So figured I picked out. I got a much larger response than I initially anticipated. So I picked 2 to 4, and I'll be reading all of those here in sequence. Number one is going to be by our very own Lord Otter, Steel and Stormbright, The Curse of the Star Race. Woo! In addition to that, I'll be reading part of Chapter 2, Immortal Descent by A.C. Pritchard. After that, we have a couple of short stories submitted by people I'm not familiar with yet. Let me see here. 1, 2, there we go. Yep. Oh, yeah, no, I know this. I know him. This is Anthony Joseph, and this is going to be the intro to his book, Revenge of the Vampire. It's going to be fantastic. And then someone I truly didn't know, at least until tonight, and that is, this is going to be tough. This is going to be a tough pronunciation. Raleigh Nyanzi. Huh. Anyway, yeah, hopefully I figure out that pronunciation a little bit before we get started. But alas, how are you guys doing tonight? There we go. What's up, McCoppin? How you doing, man? Tim Allen, Lord Otter. Woo! I thank you all for being here. I look forward to getting started. I'm gonna try to play some music in the background just as a little test, and I want you guys to let me know if you guys hear it. All right? Oh yeah. So Otter, you know Raleigh. Also, can you guys hear this music in the background? Not tonight, Wrangler. I'll be doing let's see, Shadowheart by Raleigh Nyanzi. Revenge of the Vampire by Anthony Joseph. Part of Chapter 1 of Curse of the Star Wraiths, and part of Chapter 2 of Mortal Descent. I got a lot to read. This is probably close to a quarter, or maybe even a fifth of all that I was requested to read. And alas, I don't have enough time this evening to get to really do all of it. So I had to kind of pick and choose what I was going to do. Alas, that's my goal, to read all of those tonight. But anyway, I appreciate everyone for being here. I'm going to get started. Actually, no, I'll open that up real quick to questions. Does anybody have any questions, any comments, concerns, anything of that nature? Also got a shill, so we're going to bring all these guys forward a little bit. A little too shiny. Switch it out. There we go. All right, fantastic. Thank you all for being here. We'll get started with Of Steel and Stormbright, The Curse of the Star Wraiths. All right, here we have a little intro here. The Cost of Freedom. I hope they're cheering for us, muttered Steel. You might want to listen a little closer, replied the ruffian, who until this point had remained silent. They're shouting a name I haven't heard before. Brugmar, they cry, king of the beasts. At some distance, there stood another portcullis. It opened with a similar screech of agony. A number of nearby fissures belching forth clouds of volcanic fumes, obscuring what lay beyond. The earthly smoke billowed, as if it was led by some abominable hellscape. The gladiators steadied themselves for what manner of creature may come, be it man, beast, or aberration. At first there was a low rumble before footsteps shook the ground underneath. The crowd halted their cheers, a deathly silence falling over the entire arena. A savage roar echoed from the darkness. A pair of yellow-slitted eyes pierced outwards like rays of sickly light. The beast lumbered into view, its mottled patches of fur hiding no shortage of scars among its bulk. To the gladiators, it seemed like it shared aspects of man and beast. It stood at least 3 times the height of those who opposed it, its face showing a strange mix between lion and wolf. Its mane was wild and unkempt, and in one hand it was held a massive battle axe. The creature grinned, displaying several rows of jagged teeth, not unlike a shark. Alright, so that's the intro for Curse of the Star Wraiths. And now we're going to get into Chapter 1. But first, I figured I'd present something a little more appropriate while I read this. Got to get some good art in here. Let's see here. There we go. Go there, go there. That's better. That's better. Yeah, that'll be just fine. Alright, so Chapter 1. Origin. Steel and Stormbright, The Curse of the Star Wraiths. Chapter 1. Darkness came in, as full as the storm clouds rolled overhead. The landscape reeled with its plains of golden grass and acacia trees, and cool rhododendrons dimming as if under a spell. All the magic and hope of that land vanished with it. In its place, there came a feeling of ominous uncertainty, coupled with the odd streak of lightning. The brothers frowned as they rode atop their mares, their cowls spanned over their heads while rain soaked them to the bone. Normally Zolan and Seraphas wouldn't have been surprised by weather like this, yet it dawned on them that this was no ordinary storm. It arrived in a matter of minutes, and what started as a mild drizzle became a downpour. It looks as if we've chosen a bad time to visit Mother's grave, said Zolan, his voice barely recognizable over the howling winds. Well, it's too late now to change that. This storm is getting worse by the minute. We should find some cover. Perhaps you're right. He looked about them, spotting a lone acacia tree standing nearby. Its branches swayed violently in the wind, yet it looked safer than the path they were riding along. Lightning struck overhead. Zolan's horse whinnied in response. The youth tried calming the beast, as he could feel her panicked movements coming from underneath him. He kept her calm enough so that she followed his brother. They departed from the path, and soon they were both underneath the boughs of the large acacia tree. The wind howled in their ears, though it seemed that the storm was steadily abating in its intensity. Seraphas had dismounted when there came another flash of lightning, this time causing the tree over them to erupt in a plume of flames. The two horses reeled in panic as they sped off in opposite directions. Seraphas cried out in shock, seeing that his brother was carried away by his mare. It was only a short moment before they were separated, the downpour drowning out their shouts for one another. The rain pounded against his face. Following several attempts to rein in his mount, Zolan pulled back with all his strength. At first it seemed that the beast might stop then and there, before she turned. He felt himself leave the saddle. His hands groped along for any kind of hold, yet it was too late, as he landed in the mud with a crash. He lay there for some time before his senses returned. How long, he wasn't sure. Eventually, his eyes opened as he struggled to his feet. Despite all of his efforts to move his arms, he could only do so with his left. The other felt as if it had been thrust over a fire, each movement coming with a horrific jolt of pain. It was obvious that his shoulder had been dislocated. He was also alone. Seraphas! Seraphas! he cried. There was no response. His voice welled up with tears as he stumbled to the nearest hillside. In truth, being a boy of 13 years, Zolan was largely scorned by his peers for acting too much like a child. He had relied upon his older brother for so long. This fact was made all the more evident when he had been forced to hunt a prized elk on his own, returning several hours later with nothing to show for it. He was too weak. His elders said as much. He continued to weep in frustration. Though only a couple years spanned them, Seraphas had appeared so fearless and confident. Now the thought of being left alone was utterly terrifying one. Somehow, he would have to fend for himself. He would have to survive. The lad stifled his emotions, coming face to face with a large boulder. Unfortunately, its surface was too smooth to serve as any real cover. Zolan thought of another use for it. He steadied his breathing and tried to remain calm, though in reality, his heart was racing. Thankfully, he had seen Harskull's shaman treating injuries like this before, at least enough to know how to deal with it. The winds were shy of being full-fledged cyclone, and there was no guarantee that Seraphas was even alive. He would have to find his brother, and that likely meant having to use both arms. Thus he twisted his shoulder and slammed it against the stone. He felt the joint being popped into place, though that didn't stop him from roaring in pain. Zolan dropped to his knees, retching as his mind wavered along the edge of consciousness. His heartbeat steadied as both the agony and adrenaline subsided. He was so tired, but he would have to move on if he hoped to survive. That was when he heard his name being called out among that storm. At first, he thought it was Seraphas who had found him. Zolan smiled in relief, moving to the hill summit to try and survey his surroundings. No one was there. Zolan, the voice spoke out again, only this time it appeared to come from the heavens themselves. The youth became frightened. How could he hear his own name being spoken if it wasn't his brother? It couldn't have been the other men of Harskull. They were too far away for anyone to find them. The weather was too violent. So who was this other person who called out to him? That was when he saw it. Out from the rain and wind, there emerged a figure who towered high over everything else. Though it was human-like in appearance, its eyes glowed with a thunderous, supernatural fury. Each stride resounded like a thunderclap, a long mane waving independent of its surroundings. Zolan trembled where he stood, realizing that this figure must have been some sort of deity. Of course, he had heard tales of men speaking with gods from before, but he never thought that he would be the one to have such an encounter. Kalam too, he thought. Yes, it had been their shaman who told them stories of this deity. Like most of the other gods who dwelled in this world, the Master of Storms was said to be unpredictable in his behavior. He could be reduced to cinders just as they might. Alright, real quick, I am going to keep reading, but I want to share this art by Neutron Bohr, who has done art for so many of us in the Iron Age, and obliged to do some of the art for the Lord Otter, both on the cover and within the text of the book itself. Here we have Kalamtu. Hopefully you guys can see that. There you go. Alright, next page. Moving on. One could be reduced to cinders just as they might be given his blessing. Kalamtu was known to be a god of might, one who wrought terrible destruction for all who stood in his path. Zolan couldn't believe himself. This storm was his doing. The figure halted in stride, standing over the boy as if it were a massive statue. He wasn't sure what this being could have wanted with him. Yet, he was almost certain it was outside of his understanding. Every fiber in his being quaked in fear, but there was also a part of him that waited with anticipation. That was when a hand, twice his size, moved over him. From those massive fingers danced blue streams of lightning. Deep within his soul, Zolan felt something stir and awaken, something which responded to that stimulus. He realized that the lightning was coming from himself. His eyes began glowing as well. His voice didn't waver as he spoke, almost as if in declaration. Stormbright. The giant smiled as he lifted his hand. Another flash of lightning came forth as it blinded the youth. By the time his sight had returned, all signs of the deity were gone. It wasn't long after that Zolan lost consciousness, the energy dispersing as his body fell to the scorched earth. It would have been several hours before he was found by Serathas. Even in the days following their return, he would recall little from their time being separated. There would be no memory of what transpired after falling from his horse, nor of the god he had encountered within that storm. In the wake of destruction, the fields of man were largely spared. Only the odd scorch mark and fallen branch indicated the land had been changed at all. There remained an unnatural silence, a sense of unrest which hushed the sighs between blades of grass, even the rustling of leaves among the trees and bushes. Following some time, the disquiet broke as the cavalcade of soldiers made their march. The light of the sun reflected off their helms and cuirasses, forged of brass and shimmering moon steel. Their arrayment of skewers bobbed up and down in unison. Their symmetrically perfect faces looked on without wavering, being toned a light shade of bronze. To the common passerby, their presence might have appeared divine or even angelic, as their knotted arms and thews bent under the weight of their armor. Not a single person faltered in stride. Not one made a step out of line. Oof, there we go. Oh, thanks, Cyber Dragon. There you go. Lord Otter, hopefully I'm doing your book justice, or at least not horribly brutalizing it. All right. At the front of this Ilgrathian squadron were two figures. The first settled upon her gelding, swaying imperceptibly while staring forward. She wore no helm, her mane of golden hair tied back in a single braid which curled along her shoulders. Meanwhile, her human companions beside her was a solid cubit shorter. He was hooded and wiry of figure. Everything down to his ebony hair and melancholic mannerism showed that he was nothing like his superior. His robes were a dismal black. His face was gaunt and worn by untold years of obedience. This sorcerer, whose name was Adas, moved his eyes over his companion. The falconer cast him a passing glance.
Keep your eyes to yourself. I don't enjoy it when one of your kind looks at me that way.
The man obeyed without question. We still have a job to do, and you know your role in it. Sorry. Gotta do that proper. We still have a job to do. You know your role in it. Her eyes turned back to her surroundings.
I believe we should be close enough now.
They stopped by the trail. Here it seems that the storm's destruction had been at its worst. Whole sections of the land were overturned. Nearby was an acacia tree. There we go. And nearby was an acacia tree that had been burned to cinders. A series of scorch marks littered the area, which was undoubtedly caused by several lightning strikes in one place.
Strange,
She said.
This seems a good place to start, if any.
They rode a short distance before she turned to her companion, her voice hardening as if she were commanding a slave. Astromancer, begin your scrying. This area seems most suspicious. Adas was quick to respond, his eyes clouding a milky white as he dismounted. For a second, his hands moved as if they were gripped in a palsy. His mind traveled along past, present, and future. He could see everything that had transpired there, everything which might also happen, but it was always difficult to discern the finer details. Faces, in particular, were a haze to his mind, even for one so experienced as he. Yet, he could at least divine the broader strokes of what happened. Yes, I can see it, he spoke absently. A sorcerer was here not long ago. It seems as if his powers were awakened by some being or god? I do not know what it was exactly, but I can tell that it has caused this destruction. He gestured around them as his concentration lapsed, his senses briefly overwhelmed. His eyes cleared of that mysterious magic. How long ago was this? General Kirst inquired. A little over 3 weeks, he said. The magician couldn't have gone far. He was weak. And anyone whose sorceries are awakened will require some time to adjust. Did you see his face? The astromancer shook his head. She sighed.
No wonder the others speak your name with such high praise, for a human at least. Your magic is quick, and you get straight to the point.
Truly, I am honored. He bowed before remounting his horse. He was not exactly sure why, but he had omitted the fact that their target was joined by another. Likely they were friends or brothers by his own conjecture. He waved away the thought. They rode onward for some time as Adas mustered the courage to speak. If I may ask, how did you learn of this anomaly? General Kirst frowned at him.
It was found out by Ilgrathi,
she said with a hint of reluctance.
Apparently, this magic was so powerful that even she took notice. There was no other reason given, only that we should find any sorcerers responsible and deal with them.
It sounds like she is afraid, he said.
Watch your words.
A moment passed before she continued, her tone becoming a tinge more even measured.
This sorcerer could complicate things for us. Right now, it is vital that we expand our borders, and we cannot afford to have any rogue magicians working against us.
She looked at him again, this time with more menace.
Is that understood, Adas?
He nodded before going silent. Ooh, sweet. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Also, real quick, I'm still kind of new to this streaming thing. I'm trying to use my my sound kind of board here to alter my voice and make it higher or lower as it's appropriate. Anyone who's watching, is it working? Yo, animation overload. What's up, brother? Also, so when I raise my voice like this, can you hear that change? Or when I lower it like this, can you hear that? Sweet. That's better. All right, guys, thank you for sticking around. I'll continue here. Not sure how long this chapter is. Let's see. Got a few pages. Ooh, this might take up the most of the night. It's a good chunky little chapter. Let's see here. Oh, did I skip? Did I go into chapter 2? I might be in chapter 2. Alas, I will continue. All right, getting back to it.
Is that understood, Adas?
He nodded while going silent, wordlessly cursing his fate. Why had the goddess chosen him for a task like this? Surely she must... Oh, wait. Oh, wrong page. Surely she must have realized his connection to the area. Most humans came from the fields of man, after all. And what was more, he had recognized these parts as home. That had been decades ago. Only then it was Adas and his brother, along with Maelith, the woman he loved so dearly. He could still recall the day when the Ilgrathans invaded, conquering the fields of man under one fell swoop. His fellow men fought valiantly, though there was little defense against the Almari, those Ilgrathan soldiers who rode on the backs of giant birds. Several cities were razed in a matter of hours, and somehow he and his brother were separated. Maelith was also taken from his arms that day, where he was forced to witness her rape and murder. Thinking about it now, his only means of survival had come from his predisposition for magic. It was required that his mind be broken to prevent any thoughts of rebellion. The Ilgrathans had beaten him so many times, tortured his mind and body to where they were but fragments of a greater whole. He hated them for it, despised them, in fact. But there was part of him that kept in line, staying loyal to his sadistic masters. They were nearing their destination. Already the landscape was becoming more familiar by the second. Adas could see a faint trail leading up ahead, sneaking by a close escarpment before arriving at a collection of animal-shaped huts. Bloodshed was soon to follow. When the Ilgrathans arrived, the villagers of Harskull were struck with immediate fear. There was no place for them to go, nowhere to flee from those terrifying soldiers. Their adversaries had come without warning, despite the village being almost hidden to the naked eye. There was little they could do with the enemy at their doorstep. The soldiers gleamed fiercely as they stood in formation, appearing like figures out of legend. To Sarathas, he knew what these people were capable of, and his fear held him firmly in place while standing amongst the crowd. It had been several weeks since he had returned with his brother, and though Zolan was fast on the road to recovery, he was still somewhat weak from their excursion. The mounted soldiers stopped at the edge of the village. One was slim and beautiful, her plated armor making little noise as she dismounted. Beside her, the man in robes did the same. The woman's eyes swept from side to side, her aquiline features giving her a likeness to a bird of prey.
I am pleased that our entrance has not gone unnoticed, she said sardonically. My name is General Kerst. I am Falconer of Ilgrathi, and I come here on urgent business. There are reports that a rogue magician is hiding in the area, and we have reason to believe he is here among you.
A sharp whisper spread throughout the crowd. Even in their small corner of the world, they had heard tell of how these Falconers were firstborn Ilgrathian women were chosen at a young age, taken, and given a drop of their goddess's blood. It was well known that this enhanced their abilities, increasing both their strength and cunning, while doing very little to change their bodily appearance. It was the greatest gift a warrior goddess could give her pupils, as their tales of bloodletting and conquest were legendary. It was then that two of the villagers stepped forward. One was burly and not unlike a giant, his auburn hair falling behind his powerful shoulders, as a claymore was strapped to his back. In contrast, the man beside him was exceedingly small and frail. His bald pate reflected the light of the sun. Though his voice was haggard, there was a musical eloquence as he spoke. "I bid you welcome, General Kirst. My name is Gelazar, and I am the shaman of Harskull. I must admit, we haven't found any signs of a sorcerer in these parts. Tell us, what information has given you such an idea?" The general frowned.
"My companion informed me that a human was awakened. I am told this person is nearby, assuming his visions are accurate."
So you've an astromancer with you? Truly, General, this seems insincere coming from an order which eschews magic. Using one sorcerer to track another, that is? The falconer spoke in between her teeth.
"You are testing my patience."
"The feeling is mutual. Have your sorcerer cast his spells and be gone. We have nothing to hide from you, and you can rest assured there's no magician hiding among us." Her temper boiling over, she gestured to Adas. The man hesitated as he witnessed the shaman's stern expression. Sarathas sensed that there was some connection between these two, as if something were being conveyed from one man to the other. All of that vanished, however, when Adas looked away and began moving his hands. A milky white film enveloping his eyes. His other movements were imperceptible, as if his energy were being refocused into weaving that magic. "He is here," he said after a moment.
"Well, which one is he?"
"I do not know." General Sirst gave him a wary look. Her hand hovered over the pommel of her rapier.
"Then we do it my way,"
she said.
"Search them! My soldiers! Bring anyone here who seems suspicious."
The soldiers marched forward without hesitation, filtering through the crowd with frightening speed. A few screams emerged, yet they were quickly silenced as blades were drawn, held against the necks of those captured villagers. "You cannot do this!" shouted the giant, drawing his claymore. "We have done nothing against you!" "Oh, that remains to be seen," she replied. "In fact, let's bring you here for inspection first." Two soldiers locked their grip around his arms. The burly warrior tried resisting, yet their combined strength was greater. They brought him a fair distance closer when he was forced to his knees in submission. "My, you are a strong one." Her eyes narrowed. "Tell me, what is your name, human?" Oh, hey, yo, what's up? We got Pence, we got Johnny Douglas, Evelay music. The IronAge. All right, getting back to it. "Kothan," he growled in reply. "Well, Kothan, you seem like one who doesn't break easily under pressure. That is good. Sorcerer or not, You shall make a fine example for the others. One of the soldiers stepped along his right flank, a spear poised to strike. Kothan didn't hesitate, as he wrestled away one of his hands with a jerk, using it to pull down the Ilgrathan on his left. The squirming soldier fell, acting as a shield against the weapon that struck downward. A scream erupted. The soldier was going still in an instant. Before the other Ilgrathan could react, Kolthan sprung upward with his fist. It connected with the man's jaw, bringing him right off his feet. A whimpering followed, as it was clear the bone had been broken. Now rising himself, Kothan brandished his enemy's spear, his flowing hair half obscuring his face. He raised it while diving forward, charging past the flanking soldiers towards General Kerst. Any lesser veteran would have been slain then and there, but Kolthan barreled through his enemies as if they were nothing at all. Do not think you have won, wench! I shall never relent in the face of evil! Not ever! General Kerst did not falter. Unsheathing her rapier, she formed a lithe defensive stance, anticipating which move her opponent might make. The giant reared up his weapon before feinting to one side. His stab was true, being aimed straight at her heart. He would have succeeded had she not sidestepped, cleaving off his one arm near the elbow, before delivering another cut along his back. The giant yelled as he fell face down. He tried moving up from where he lay, but found that he couldn't. The cut at his back was simply too deep, almost enough to paralyze him. The falconer held her weapon at his neck. Her expression was one of mockery as she spoke. Like I said, you make the perfect example. Her actions didn't go unnoticed. Serathas had inched his way closer during the fight. He was near enough, and he couldn't stand to see his father humiliated any longer. That's fine. He made his move, drawing a hunting dagger. He dashed in between his foes, shouting with a violent rage as he trained it towards her throat. No, Serathas! No, Serathas! He heard his father cry out. But it did not matter to him. He would rather see this falconer cast into oblivion for her crimes. She was a demon made manifest. She moved just in time, enough so that his dagger glanced off her breastplate. You little shit! With a swift movement, she grabbed and twisted his one arm behind his back. A tremor shook his entire frame as his muscles locked in place. The blade wrenched from his hand and cast aside. Serathas realized that any movement was futile. Pain shot through his nerves as General Kerst's rapier pressed against his neck. The woman's grip was like iron. He knew instinctively that any unwanted movement would see his throat sliced open. He could do nothing, save for scream as the agony spread along his nerves. So you recognize this child? The falconer grinned. Standing here, I can see the resemblance between father and son. Two fiery souls, both misguided, but strong all the same. Please, Kolthan begged. I surrender. You may do whatever you like with me, but please spare my boy. A long pause followed before another voice interjected. Enough! I will not see my people brought through this torture any longer. It is I who conjured this magic you speak of. I am your magician. I, Gulizar. At this, Kerst frowned. That remains to be seen, shaman. She turned to her companion. Aid us. See if the man is speaking the truth. As commanded, the astromancer moved forward. His hands passed along the human's features, his eyes going white as he traversed the boundaries between space and time. Even before the spell was completed, Aedas knew his answer. The man speaks the truth. We've found our magician, General. Good! Bring him here! Serathas was released and thrown to the ground. His head spun as his muscles ached with fire, his body reeling from the pain he had endured. After a moment, his senses recovered. He motioned himself closer to his father. He tore a strip of cloth from his own tunic, binding Kolthan's arm stump as best he could. Next to Serathas the shaman was brought forth, a knee from his captors bringing him to his haunches. Do you have any last words, shaman, before you go and meet your heathen gods? Gulazar smiled as he cast a look towards the youth. There was something in his expression, as if the shaman knew something that Serathas didn't. He faced General Kerst. Only that your fate will be the same as ours. I have seen what your goddess is capable of, and I can tell you that she is nothing but a heathen herself. Come the end, only you will be left to sift through the pieces of that empire you hold so dear. The prophecy of a fool, she said, holding aloft her rapier. She slashed downward, and the deed was done. The shaman's body slumped to the ground, his smile no less apparent as his head rolled along her feet. She wiped her blade with a kerchief. Turning to the soldiers at her side, her voice was like ice as she muttered the horrific words. Burn the village! Take the rest as slaves! No! Kolthan cried, though it was too late to resist. The soldiers of Alcaron were already moving, their torches setting fire to everything surrounding those stone huts. The warriors of Harskull fought for both their lives and their families. However, their strength paled in comparison to their captors. They were cut down in an instant. The smoke stained the huts, those glaring animal faces. All the while, the villagers were pulled out, screaming, beaten and humiliated, bound in chains. Serathas, Kolthan whispered, take your brother and flee this place. You cannot let yourselves be caught, no matter what. But, Father, Tears were running down his face. There is no time. You must go. Now! The boy nodded as he fled the hands of his captors, bolting within the crowd like a shadow. It was soon after that Kolthan tried moving, but not before a metal boot planted itself on his back. He won't make it far, said General Kerst. But I love to see them squirm. Serathas dove into the shelter of his hut. Thankfully, theirs hadn't been set on fire just yet. Zolan was laying there asleep. He was still weak from his mysterious condition. Wake up, Zolan! We have to leave, now! Serathas? What is happening? Outside. That was when he felt a blade being held against his back. Serathas turned in dismay, spotting the Ilgrathan who stood beside him. One more move, child, and that's the last thing you'll ever say. The sounds of chains rang clear as their wrists were bound. Both brothers were led outside. Already the others were gathering into two columns. Their moans and cries magnified as the harsh sound of the whip was announced. So began their lives as slaves. And chapter 2 is called The Gates of Paradise. I will be stopping right there. Because, as Herman P. Hunter, or The Hedge, as most of us know him, always says, buy the book. This is Steel and Stormbright, Curse of the Star Wraiths. Available on Kindle, hardcover, and paperback. The copy that I own myself is a hardback. It's glossy, has a nice finish. It doesn't have that weird soft feel of some of the soft soft kind of hardbacks that you see on Amazon sometimes. And this story is already tremendous. I had not read a single snippet of this story up until this moment. And Otter, this is worthy. I have a feeling it's already going to be one of my favorites in the Iron Age. Thank you so much for giving me the privilege of reading it aloud. I really appreciate it. God bless you, man. Alrighty then. We'll take a second to answer any questions, check in on you guys, see how you guys are doing. So how are we doing? There we go. Oh, good. You're still around, Otter. So, that story is mead compliant. That's, yeah. If only I had some mead, man. I'll get better as I go, but I did notice a couple of mistakes I kept on consistently making. Karst was called Karst and Serst a couple of times. I couldn't decide how to pronounce it. What shampoo do I use? It's a type of natural one, but it's actually an Amway product, if anyone has ever heard of that. I use a little bit of that. I don't wash my hair every day. I wash it every maybe 3 days, once every 2 or 3 days, depending on how dirty I get. Like, I don't use a lot of shampoo and conditioner, trying to keep it healthy. Too young for me. Screw you, Tim. No, I actually have this type of product. It's almost like an after conditioner. I put it in after I get out of the shower. Helps keep my hair healthy, at least as much as it can. It used to be able to grow about twice this long in the back and remain healthy without any effort at all. But something about divorce and getting older, it doesn't do that quite anymore. Oh, well, Evelyn, now you know. Most of you have seen me shirtless and wearing much less than that. So knowing what kind of conditioner shampoo I use, no problem there. All right. So thank you everyone for sticking around. That was Curse of the Star Wraiths, Steel and Stormbright, hardcover by the Lord Otter. Now I'll stop sharing that. Stop sharing. Boom. All right. So what to read next? I think the chapter it's kind of long reading a whole chapter, so I think I'll intersperse someone else's stories. Yeah, Wrangler, I agree. Amway products usually are pretty good. I used to really like their toothpaste, and I through a friend of mine, I still get the wipes occasionally, like the other LOC wipes. Those things will clean anything. It's insane. But alas, I think my next choice here is I'm going to read. Yeah, let's see. Chapter. Maybe not the whole chapter. Let's see. I'm trying to find the... There we go. All right. I'll read the sample that comes along with the book Revenge of the Vampire by Anthony Joseph Buffa? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but yeah. Read every third page. All right. So if there are no more questions... Oh, thank you, Animation. I really appreciate it, man. I'm not very good at it yet. What's his face? Can't remember his name, but he reads IronAge books, and he works with Mike, the artist for Shad's book, fairly often. Oh, sweet. Thank you for sticking around, CA Pence. I really appreciate it. Go get some food. Go get some sleep. Rock on, brother. And give it up for C.A. Pence, a man amongst men, a man with kahunas so tremendous no pants can be worn. All right, let's see. That's better. All right, so here we will have Revenge of the Vampire by Anthony Joseph Buffa. Chapter 1. Death of Leland. Oh, I guess I could probably share this. Hold on. Let's see. Present. Share screen. But which one? How about that? That'll do, pig. That'll do. All right. Anthony Joseph Buffa. Revenge of the Vampire. Chapter 1. The Death of Leland Cotard. Cotard? Better than Coatsaw. Anyway, sorry. It had been a few months since Leland was released from prison and put out on probation. 10 years of his life were wasted sitting in that lonely prison cell, convicted of a crime he did not commit. Now he was on his own. Alone on New Year's Eve, 1993, with no one to turn to. There was only one thing on his mind for this occasion. Out in the cold night, wandering down the streets of Brunswick, Leland was alone with his thoughts, contemplating, pondering whether he should go through it or not. As he solemnly walked along the cold, wet sidewalk, he watched and listened to people in their apartments, partying, kissing, and drinking. He longed to go back and live in the good old days again with people he once considered to be his friends. But those wild, young, carefree days were long dead, shattered by the circumstances that left his life in shambles, in disarray. Later, just hours before midnight, Leland walked by a nightclub from across the street, where a long line of people were waiting, probably for hours, outside the building, until it was their turn to show their ID to the bouncer. Many of the people in line were around his age or younger, looking to spend whatever time they had left of their youth to get laid or have the time of their lives. Leland pitied them, yet as far as he was concerned, they weren't ex-convicts like himself, struggling to find work with the risk of going back to prison if he failed to meet his parole responsibilities. It was one of those reasons why he decided to go to the Sydney Lanier Bridge tonight. At least if he goes through with it, he wouldn't have to worry about his parole anymore, or anything else for that moment. Nothing else mattered to him at this point, and there was nothing that could keep him from leaving this hellhole. Hey, sugar! Leland turned to the soothing voice that spoke out in the dark alleyway. Let's see. That would be good. Sorry, got distracted. A woman with a dark complexion, wearing a red dress that covered her bosom and the left side of her leg, leaving her whole other leg that wore a black legging exposed, stood leaning at the corner of the alleyway, looking in Leland's direction. Leland scanned the area around him, wondering if the woman was talking to someone else. Yes, I'm talking to you, sugar, the dark-skinned woman said to Leland. He didn't know who she was, but he wondered if she was one of those women looking for a good time, one that involved payment. Still, either acting on instinct or simply because she looked attractive, Leland approached the woman and said, "Hello." "You alone?" she asked. "Yeah, who's asking?" "Oh, nobody. Really, I just saw you walking by and thought I'd catch your attention." "Yeah, look like you're dressed for a very special occasion. You going somewhere?" "Well, I thought I was going to this..." Wait. Okay, sorry, I got the voices mixed up. "Well, I'm going to this New Year's party. See some friends there, but I decided to not go out since I didn't have a date tonight. Someone to be with and kiss before midnight, you know?" "Oh, yeah, I got you. You live around here?" "Yeah, my apartment's over there down the alleyway." "I know we just met, but would you like to join me for dinner? I can order some Chinese or pizza." Leland must be dreaming. This is like a dream come true for him. A fine-looking, foxy lady asking him out, inviting him over to her place, just the two of them. Leland felt his luck was finally turning around for the better. Leland walked side by side with a mysterious dark-skinned woman following her to her place, until they reached the far end of the alley. Then she suddenly turned to Leland and laid her hands on his shoulders. "So, What's your name, hon? The woman asked. Oh, it's Leland. Leland Cotard. Cotard, huh? You French? I don't know. I don't speak a lick of French. I lived here all my life. I see. Well, you do look very French for an American. The woman pushed Leland to the wall, his back up against it. She was incredibly strong for someone with such a slim figure. Whoa, take it easy, girl. The woman's hands were on Leland again, slowly caressing his chest underneath his leather jacket, then went to kiss Leland on the lips. Leland didn't hesitate. He put his hands on her. He wrapped his arm around her waist while working his other hand down her rump. Leland couldn't believe this was happening, though he wasn't complaining. He longed to be with someone as beautiful and as captivating as her. So, what's your name? Lilith, the woman answered, smiling at him. Lilith, huh? Leland chuckled to himself. You know, that name reminds me a lot of... Shh. Lilith started kissing Leland's neck softly, making him relax for a bit. Leland hadn't been with a woman in a long time. Okay, if this gets X-rated, I'm going to have to stop here, but... Oh yeah, Animation Overload. Thanks for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it. Gotta give you a little outro. Animation Overload to infinity and beyond! Goodbye, my friend. See you on the other side. There we go. Alright, let's see here. He had almost forgotten they were standing in the alleyway, but it didn't matter to him. No one was watching them. It was just him, this lovely woman with dark, soft skin, and the stillness of the night. Leland suddenly felt a deep, sharp pain in his neck, like a dagger puncturing his sensitive skin. The pain was too much. He tried to push Lilith away, but she wouldn't budge. All right, Evelyn. Ooh, yeah, you're okay, man. Appreciate you stopping by. Yeah, no, the reading's going just fine. I really appreciate it. Time for an Evelyn kind of outro. The IronAge! Woo! There you go, brother. Thanks for stopping by. Come on by next time, or else I'm coming for you, brother. All right, let's see. Leland couldn't even blurt out a word as the dark-skinned woman bit deep and drew blood from his neck. Leland could almost feel his life draining away, his heart beating slowly. Acting quickly, Leland kneed Lilith in the cooch, giving him enough time to back away from the wall and the lady who tried to suck the life out of him. Leland could feel the side of his neck going numb. He touched it and saw the blood dripping from his fingers. The dark-skinned woman... hissing and staring at him with anger and bloodlust in her eyes. Her gaping mouth was incredibly wide, as monstrous as a crocodile, flashing her bloody fangs. Her dark skin had turned to ashen gray, and her pupils were a bright yellow. Her red nails were now claws, sharp enough to tear anyone to shreds. The woman had turned into a completely different person, showing her true nature to its prey. Lilith snarled at Leland, like a leopard to its prey. Then she launched herself at him. Leland dodged out of the way before the woman could claw at him and dig her fangs deep into his skin once more, to suck him dry. He laid on the concrete floor, looking for something, anything, that could help fend off this monster. He looked behind the dumpster he'd laid next to and spotted a silver switchblade lying on the concrete between the wall and the dumpster. The space was big enough for him to squeeze his hand in there and grab the switchblade. He made a grab for it as the dark-skinned woman charged at him again. Lilith cried out into the night. She writhed in pain as the silver switchblade dug deep into her chest and beneath her rib cage, where the silver blade pierced her black heart. The monstrous woman let out a single tear as she stared at Leland, her face filled with sorrow. She let out another roaring cry as she slowly disintegrated, right before Leland's eyes, until she was nothing but molten goop, laying on the wet cement. "Hey, would you shut the hell up?" one of the residents cried out from the window of his apartment. "I'm trying to get some sleep." Leland fell to his knees as he stared at the molten form that was Lilith, the monster who almost sucked the life out of him. He placed his hand on his neck where the woman had bitten him, and looked at his palm to see if there was any blood. There was none. The wound stopped bleeding profusely, and the side of his neck was no longer numb or in pain. His heart skipped a bit as he noticed the color of his skin had changed. Before, it was tan and orange, but he saw that his skin had now turned into a pale yellow. Leland feared the worst. Of all the nights that could happen, it had to be him, and he had now become like Lilith. Leland howled in anguish to the night sky. His torment hadn't ended, but begun anew. Okay, almost there. Donna returned to her little apartment home, exhausted after spending 8 hours working behind the secretary desk. She always hated working late, but she wasn't one to complain. Her job paid well, so she just had to deal with the schedule for the time being until she could find a better one. Donna already put some of her money on the side so she could afford to paint over the gray walls with another color to make this place a little more cozy. Maybe deep yellow or mossy green. She still hadn't decided. She would at least make the place look nicer. She'd have to tidy up the place before she could have friends over. Donna laid her car keys and wallet on her kitchen table, then sat on the couch and took her shoes off. Donna was tired, but she wasn't entirely sleepy yet. She turned on her TV, planning to watch her shows before she hit the hay. "Oh, sweet. Thanks for sticking around, man. I appreciate it." "All right, Tim Allen." Let's see. We got to give Tim Allen something before he goes. "Godspeed, Tim Allen!" Woo! Yeah! All right. Let's see. Where were we? Donna laid her car... Whoa, too far. Donna laid her car keys and wallet on the kitchen table, then sat on the couch and took her shoes off. Donna was tired, but she wasn't entirely sleepy yet. She turned on her TV, planning to watch her shows before she hit the hay. At least tomorrow there wasn't any work. Donna thought to herself, she could go out with her girlfriends from work, like Sheila and Shanta. Head into their usual place like Margaritaville down at Newcastle Street. Get some drinks and talk about the usual stuff like... Suddenly, Donna heard a groan coming from her bedroom. That immediately spooked her. She thought she must be hearing things, but she wasn't completely sure. She turned down the TV's volume with her remote and sat still, listening closely. Another groan sounded from the other side of the bedroom door. Someone was in her apartment. Donna was scared stiff. She didn't know if she should leave or call the cops. She wondered if it was a homeless person. But they don't usually break into people's apartments. Whoever this intruder was, it sounded like he was in a lot of pain. Donna quickly sat up and headed into the kitchen to grab a steak knife. She walked towards the bedroom door and stood there, staring at it. She looked at the doorknob for quite some time until she summoned the courage to grab a hold of it, twist it, and open the door wide open. As Donna stepped into her bedroom, she noticed the window next to the foot of her bed. The room was dark, but the city lights from outside illuminated the room a bit. Donna couldn't spot the intruder anywhere in here. Donna gasped as she heard a loud banging coming from behind the door to her closet. Someone was in there, banging on the walls. Donna couldn't stop her hand holding the light from shaking as she slowly approached the closet. There was only silence from the other side of the door. She greatly anticipated the moment her intruder would come out, shriek, and attack her. She couldn't bear the stillness and silence any longer. Donna? That voice. Donna instantly recognized who it was. Who it was that had muttered her name.
Leland?
She opened the door and saw a figure before her of a frail man in her closet, concealing his appearance in the shadows. The man's back was against the wall, sitting on the floor. He was curled up in a ball, hiding himself in the darkness. Above the sleeve of his leather jacket, Donna could see two yellow eyes glowing in the dark, piercing back into her soul. She noticed the skin of his left hand was a sickly pale yellow color. One of the cuffs of his dark purple pants was lifted as he curled up, exposing his frail, bony leg. Even in the dark, Donna could make out how feeble the man's body was underneath his clothing. Yeah, Evelyn, no S, man. Here's what the kahunas on this woman. She hears a terrible sound coming from within her apartment, let alone her bedroom. She goes in there. I'm not going to call the cop. Anyway. Almost there. Donna couldn't believe this man was her brother Leland. She had not seen him for a very long time since he moved out from their parents' place. Yet, here he was, back again in her boring, secluded apartment, looking dramatically different since the last time she saw him. His appearance frail and pale compared to his athletic, tannish physique she remembered him having years ago. And she didn't know whether she should be concerned or scared. "Help me," her brother spoke in a low, weak voice. This isn't a turtleneck. There's no turtle on this neck. What's up, Hedge? How you doing, man? All right, that's chapter 1, Revenge of the Vampire by Anthony Joseph Buffa. If anyone's interested in checking it out, feel free. I have it's right here on Amazon. I'm sharing the screen with you. Oh, all right, let's see. Stop sharing. There we go. Whew! How's everyone going? Who all's still here? That ain't Leland. That's some sort of sick white vampire, you know? We got some. Quick, Betty, grab that wooden stake. Yeah, the one I was going to use for the fence. Oh, whatever. I'll buy you another one. Get in here. Come on, get. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what that was. Alas. Yep, that was Revenge of the Vampire. What time is it? It's not too late. Yeah, it's only 8:30. I got time. Go on, get on, Bill. Get out of here. You don't belong here. This is my house. That's a problem. That's why you never see vampires down in the South. Heck, even Robert E. Howard, he had a short story about a ancient Spanish warlord that became a vampire, and unfortunately, they uncovered. Yo, what's up, guilty? Alas, because it was a Robert E. Howard story, this story took place in Texas, and it was one Mexican kid and a good old Texan boy who found the vampire. How did the story end? Literally just went fisticuffs with him until the sun came up and he burned. Just like, all right, supernatural, 200-year-old entity, let's go. That's why you never see vampires in the South, except for in Dusk Until Dawn. You know, that works. You got some nice fangs you got there, son. Come here, let me show you my knuckle. What's up there, Wrangler? How you doing, man? Big, beautiful chat. So tremendous. Kahunas abound. Big, beautiful kahunas. Yeah, there you go, Evelyn. All right, so what do I got left to read? What do I got left? It's getting late, but you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna read the beginning of chapter 2, Mortal Descent by A.C. Pritchard. Yes, there is music, and I was playing music. Alas, I will play this music again. Actually, no, I need to select some more haunting music. AC told me a little bit about this. Let's see. How you doing, Evelyn? Were you over there watching Richard's stream just a little bit ago? Oh, thank heavens! The vampire has been vanquished. My word! That's why you never go to the city. All those heathens living there in their filth and squalor, getting the sucked off by a vampire. You know what I mean? Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, he's asking you about music. Oh wait, no, never mind. I'm done. All right.
Don't pop it.
No.
Patch it. Mighty Patch Pimple Patches absorb gun.
Okay, I'll let that go, and then I'll start Mortal Descent. Let's see. Should be done in a second. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's see. Where the devil did it go? Legends of Retribution. Yep, so this is Mortal Descent by A.C. Pritchard, and this is a collection of short stories from his world. Each is depicting a rather important moment in the history of the world. Every chapter in this is supposed to be of something of a day or event of consequence within the continuity of his fantasy realm. Alas, I can turn up the music a little bit. There we go. My God, what is that there? A confused Kahuna. All right. A memory of mortality, an archive of discovery. The sun appeared over a bloody and bruised horizon. Well, human, how many times have you been killed? The question took him off guard. It's not something you ask a wolf of the Phoenix, he thought, especially an outsider like this filthy lizard. The answer remained frozen in his chest as the first snows fell from a colorful morning sky above the empire of Beltan's northern border. The dwarf wore the uniform of his company. Heavy blue coat draped over his shoulder, snapping in the wind behind him. Around his torso was a sapphire blue sack coat with the insignia of the Firkten Republic embroidered on the breast. An inverted frozen phoenix shaded in blacks, blues, and whites. His boots sank into the fertile soil underfoot as another round of bombs went off in the distance. 99, he grunted, standing to continue the cold march with his brothers in arms. Some say it's 3 times what they tell us, he thought, a frigid look creeping across his face. It was the first thing they told me when I was reclaimed. One dark eye glistened beneath an iron helm, shaped to resemble a wolf. His other eye, just a purple mass of scars. He took aim against the shattered trunk of a tree and pulled back the trigger with meaty white fingers. The shot echoed for a moment before the sounds of invasion swallowed it. He broke his rifle to discharge the spent casing, and it shivered red hot on the ground before it finally died. The reptilian blocked his path, scales bristling to life like flower petals of fire.
What is it?
She asked.
To die.
She was scarlet, crimson, and blood. Her eyes pink and orange sunbursts like a cat with a cat-like slit. She wore armor of bones and hard leather, enough to protect the important areas but not enough to be weighed down. Wide shoulders bore her massive head, with no neck to speak of. Black spines trailing down a thick tail half the length of her body. A rodent skin cloak served as her dragon's wings. A horned iron helm to complete the facade. "It hurts," he said, the words unbidden. "Far longer than I thought." In his mind's eye, the boy in green leapt at him, knife in hand. His memory was just a blur of images and feelings too painful to understand. "Each time I return, part of me stays behind." He spoke more to himself as he stared at one of his pale, scarred hands. The red dragon hissed, ruby scales trembling.
It stays behind?
Her voice was mocking.
I see all of you standing in front of me for lack of an eye.
Her burst of laughter was devoured by a roar of thunderclaps.
Tell me, how many have you killed then?
Then the wolf remained silent. The sound of machinery squealed into the air, like a demon heralding the approach of a fortress. Mighty oaks screamed into splinters beneath the tracks of the landship as it cut a dark swath across the verdant countryside. The shape of the monstrosity set a jagged outline of black against the belting crops as enemy rounds turned uselessly against it. The ground trembled as it roared along, standing taller than any home. Silhouettes spread across the landscape beside it like dark winter wraiths, shadows cast from the cold fires of the Furkten Republic. The new shell was cold beneath the wolf's filthy, pale fingers as he slid it into the barrel, snapping the rifle shut with a crack. When he tried to continue walking, the dragon flared up again and lowered her spear. Ever burning, he thought. As expressionless and rigid as ice beneath that iron wolf helm, the sound of hooves rising up behind them, she whispered to him,
Just because Furkten has made an alliance with some Drathukan blood guards does not make us allies.
Grammarly's
Cadaver.
tips on starting an essay.
Let's say you're struggling to put pen to
son
paper.
of a gun. There we go. Alright, let's see.
Cadaver.
A Furkten knight of ash on the back of his armored white stallion approached in a blur of black and blue. His officer's uniform was largely the same, many silver badges of merit hanging from the man's jacket like chips of ice. The only difference were a snow-white half-cape, mirrored steel breastplate beneath his jacket, and a crowned skull motif for the helm. The knight's powered weapon hissed to life in a wash of white light, causing a veil of tears to stifle their vision. The Ash Lord looked down at them with contempt, mount snorting savagely as the sharp edge of his rifle cracked with every flake of snow it touched. You're falling behind, dog. Strays are put down. Don't you understand? Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, his voice was soft. Oops. That had a hollow bite to it. The knight's cold gaze moved to the dragon. Off with you, my wolf fingers among sheep. The dragon cackled, scales shivering as a far-off blast rang out.
Apologies, Lord Knights. I merely asked his name.
The frozen fingers seized the wolf by the heart. My name? he thought, catching a dawn break through the oily black clouds rising across the countryside. The knight snorted heavily, like his mount beneath him, rearing back his stallion, pointing to the south. A group of Belten scum, either too brave or too foolish to retreat, lay dug in there just beyond that hill. Clear it at once. They bent to their task. Day became night, as a bombing brigade floated by overhead and eclipsed them in shadow. When the sun returned, the wolf had already begun looting the corpses of anything useful. Alongside the red dragon, he couldn't help but watch as the dog tags hanging from around his neck dangle chaotically as he worked. My name? He thought. 429199. The wolf heard himself blurt out as he ran his grubby fingers over a family photo pulled from one of the corpses. The wind carried it away with his words. The red dragon snorted.
Numbers, be gone, as your Lord of Ash commanded of me.
Her tail quivered like a greedy red serpent when she found a coin purse from one of the young ones.
Unless you claim to have slain as many.
You asked me my name, and so I told you. He could feel fresh blood flush up into his cold, pale cheeks. The knights just call me 99.
Your name?
The dragon cocked her head and gave it a scratch as she kicked the final body away. Freshly pilfered flask in hand.
That is no name,
she tried to say, interrupted by a second mouth opening beneath her chin. A curtain of crimson went spilling down the front of her armor, body tensed as her hands clutched wildly. 99 stared for a moment before he noticed the blade sprouting from her wound. The red dragon slumped to the ground, her eyes dancing with his as he raised his steel with frozen apathy. One of them feigned death to buy this opportunity, he thought. The young one, barely a man, not past his 20th year. The boy wore green and russet uniform of Belten, but with a golden scarf billowing around his neck. His eyes looked desperate, surging with adrenaline. It didn't matter, though. In combat, 99's hands moved with cold authority all their own. The lad swung his blade, and he rose his to embrace it, edges kissing in a wash of sparks. For a moment, 99 could see the reflection of his own scarred face glistening in the boy's watery eyes. He's terrified, he realized. The wolf lowered his guard, feinting left. When the boy took the bait, he doubled back and came crashing down at the base of the neck. Then it was done. There you go. All right. Good night, Evelay. Godspeed! Woo! Oh! All right, there you go. "99 grimaced. Now only seeing his sleeve had already blossomed a scarlet flower where the projectile had struck. I'm wounded, he realized, calmly applying pressure. As he looked upon the red dragon one last time, his eyes stared accusingly. The snow wasn't melting where it landed on her, leaving behind a greasy gray smear as he wiped a flake from his hand. Ashes, he knew, but what he couldn't shake were the things lost to him. My name, he asked himself, watching chips of gray and white fall among coiling tendrils of smoke in the face of the morning sun. They took refuge within the shell of a decaying country castle on the third day of the Belten counterattack. He could hear officers shouting in their mongrel tongue as chips of stone rained down around him. A constant barrage of suppression. We're good as dead, he bitterly thought, as he waited for a gap in the attack. When one presented itself, 99 propped his rifle onto a crumbling wall and took aim outside. It was dark, but in the flashes of explosions he could begin to make out the silhouettes of the enemy. His heart beat in his chest like an angry war drum. He could see shapes at the base of the fortress like green, gold, and red ants advancing on a rival hill. Only these aren't ants, he mused grimly. And we are more than just rivals. The river cut a blue gash in the landscape, creating an asymmetrical moat of ants that the ants had to cross. It was drying as the winter half of the year approached, but even so much as a thin stream would encumber some enemies long enough for a shot to land. The wolves were surrounded, though, and the corpse pile had grown so large the knights had to dedicate a stable to their storage. Recovery missions were sent out whenever a man fell outside the castle, so long as the corpse was in good condition. But the Beltans had grown wise to the tactic after the first day, and took to burning or mutilating the casualties, lest they return after reclamation. 99 watched her brother fall as a flash illuminated the night, waiting patiently as sweat beaded down his cold cheek. The phoenix returns, hotter and brighter, he thought, resisting the urge to wipe it away. When daylight momentarily came again, he saw them swarm the man like a cloud of flies, and knew that was his chance. The wolf squeezed the trigger, and a plume of fire was born at the end of the muzzle, dying in a cloud of smoke as its scream ripped through the air. Just as the greencoat had wrenched an arm free from the socket of the fallen brother, he fell to the earth and joined him as 99 shot found its mark. They laid sprawled across one another like lovers, frozen in a moment of embrace. The wolf broke his rifle to release the hissing, used casing. As it fell upon the cold castle stones, the shell burned bright among a graveyard of its long-dead kin, until the memory of warmth withered away from it. He slid another into the smoking chamber and took aim into the abyss. Another flash revealed the group, and he reacted with another shot. The flies scattered, and everything went black again. Then a moment later, flames bloomed from the bodies in tongues of red and gold. 99 clenched his teeth. Never again to be reclaimed, he gravely reminded himself, swallowing the sick feeling in his throat. The flames drew the attention of his brothers. 2 more Beltans went down as they fled. The prophetic scream of the landship rose up over the horizon with a pale blue light, its cold advance flushing the Beltan reserves from the forest and into the dying river. Hundreds of greencoats stampeded in full retreat, washing over the crumbling foundations of the castle like a panicked waterfall down the riverside. The blood-guard reptilians appeared behind them in several columns divided by color, a veritable rainbow of death inexorably approaching. The 3 Knights of Ash appeared on a third front, each atop a white armored charger with their own legion of wolves marching in lockstep behind them. One of the knights bellowed commands over the sounds of combat. "Fire at will!" she screamed, igniting her powdered weapon in a sudden burst of starlight. 2 more bursts followed from the other Ash Lords as their weapons came alive in the night. They fell upon the Beltans like an avalanche. Lightning coughed from the mouths of the knights' powered weapons, crashing over retreating greencoats in violent eruptions of black, brown, and red mist. Almost immediately, they release a second wave, then a third. One after the other, until all of their lights went dark and only craters remained where they had reached out and planted their deadly kisses. Then the land ship advanced. By the time it was done, the first whispers of the sun had just appeared in the sky. The earth was scarred, scorched, smoldering, and most of all, unrecognizable. Since before they had held up in the castle, the dwindling river was diminished further by a mass of corpses growing to choke it out. A long line of captors spread. I just love the commercials in the music that I'm playing. It's my favorite. The red dragon's question came creeping back into his mind, wound deep in his biceps still smoldering. The bandage had become different shades of brown and green throughout the battle.
What is it like?
She had asked, fire swirling in her eyes.
To die.
The morning mist cast a pale glow over the forest as they advanced. The world had gone silent, save the sound of boots crushing leaves and branches underfoot. 99 could hear them whispering. I heard they planned to hold out the bridgehead near the hills of the southern border, the soldier was saying. The river drains into a bay, which they've been using to escape with the merchants who supply them. The river is dry now, the laughing blood guard. Cursed these people are. I heard the Pale Shadow Enclave masses at the southern border, ferried over by Fjörkten before the ocean frosts. The soldier scoffed. It don't matter how strong their bridgehead is, if they don't expect the orcs to come till winter. Well, the reptile had never completely stopped chuckling. What do they hope to hold out for at their dry little riverbed? Allies? The soldier snorted. They say the nations of Thala and Lat speak of liberation. They can speak all they want, quipped the chuckler. If their plan is to hold out until winter, then they're in for a surprise when they find winter holding out for them. The soldier inclined his head in agreement. Even if they launch this liberation of theirs, none know of the alliance between man, dragon, and those beasts from the edge of the world. A cold look swept across his face. Never did like them, orcs. Sooner to turn when there's nothing left to pillage, then all of us can become bones beneath a blanket of snow, eh? If what they say is true, then these people are already dead, 99 thought, tensing his jaw. Then he remembered what other soldiers had said about the Empire of Beltan being the aggressors, how they had broken some long-standing agreement between nations. His face hardened further, forming wrinkles like cracks, scrawling along the ice. They are defending against us, he observed. And most of them are just boys. The chuckler shuddered. Aye, I'll give it to them, though. Those hills, valleys, swamps, even the dry riverbeds provide natural lines of defense. Orc and fortress alike will struggle to cross such things. At least they learned from the Battle of Boyat and play defense at their bridgehead. Until the Enclave arrives, that is, the soldier sighed. Like some horrible ivory and iron blizzard. His voice went lower, like he spoke to himself. I hear some of them orc take bears as their mounts. The chuckler cut him off with a hiss, his sapphire tail visibly twitching in the fog. Quiet! His voice craned back and forth like a bird. Smell something. Smoke. The fire flickered faintly in the fog, far ahead like the sun frozen in a cloud. Refugee camp? The soldier grunted. Get ready. Yeah, ads. Hey, we're reading here. Nice, guilty. A dozen colorful tents were set up in a grove of oaks and ash. Cook fire dancing wildly at the center beneath a fawn roasting over upon a spit. The initial shelling felled the men who stood guard, dark shapes spreading out beneath their green jackets where the projectiles struck. Following standard procedure, 99 readied a shot and drew his blade in advance. The group spread out among the tents, chaos erupting as people screamed and fled only to be chased down. 99 pushed open the flap of the tent he had been assigned. A pair of shots echoed over the sounds of shouting and blades clanging. A man burst out and drove into his midsection, the two sprawling on the ground like animals. After a moment of composure, 99 managed to pin the naked man down and forced the air from his lungs with the weight of his body. Pressing hard into the man's throat with his bracer, he waited until the fire faded from his eyes, and his body went limp before he returned to the tent. His dark eye glistened from the reflection of burning tents. Inside, he heard whimpering. A little Beltan girl, no older than 13, hunched, sobbing over her dead mother. That man outside was her father, the wolf realized. They must have been sleeping as we swept over them. Oh good, more ads, my favorite. Why are there so many of them on this particular video? This is BS, man. Okay, anytime now. 2-1, skip. Good. Man, if only, it's like YouTube wants me to pay for it or something, you know? Flickering beams of orange light cut through holes in the tent where shots had come through. Not mine, he told himself. Surely they aren't mine. The red dragon's question came back to him again.
How many have you killed?
She had asked him. When the Beltan girl saw him, her red swollen eyes went wide as fresh tears skimmed across her pink cheeks. She wore a yellow and gold dress with red trim. Had an ash-brown tangle of hair, with the silver eagle pinning it back, and freckles on her face. An image forced itself into his mind's eye. A pair of eyes, dark, like his, awakened at night, and an innocent smile with that same tangle of hair. A baby? He held a baby in his hands. The child had his face, though with spindly ash-brown curls, and an innocent smile as he held her. That smile, which spoke of trust and warmth and life, which promised love and purpose. A smile of hope and preservation. The smell came next, like a cleansing summer rain. The smell of a newborn child. His child. 99 came back with a hot, retching feeling in his chest. He heard a man shout from outside, then another screaming as he died. The wolf's face tightened as he drew his dagger and advanced. The girl shouted something in her native tongue, but it did not matter. He pushed past her and slashed open the back of the tent, casting the tip of the blade into the dirt before turning to leave. He could feel his cheeks flush with the memory of his daughter. Never looking back, the girl snatched up the blade as she burst from the tent and disappeared into the forest. Something warm and wet on his face caught 99's attention. I am a father, he thought, expecting blood as he brushed his hand over his cheek. Then he saw he was crying. The approach to the bridgehead was a rocky slope leading to an ancient tower made from the stones of white marble castles long forgotten. The metal bridge was rebuilt 1,000 times reach across the river crevasse, fingers of ice hanging from its edges. The light of midday left the dried riverbed with a flat complexion, but the tower still cast a long shadow. The Beltan remnant forces had dug trenches out in front of the gate, a series of scars in the earth, filling with greencoats eager to mount their last stand. Snow had fallen for 2 days, creating a layer deep enough to stifle the Furkten supplies. But the storm seemed to die now as the battle approached. Either out of respect or fear, the wolf mused, melting snow in a pot over a cook fire. The Knights of Ash ordered their wolves to attack the tower head-on. Since they insist on cowering in their holes, they can drown in them, 99 had overheard one say as he prepared to charge. Ammunition was running low, however, and it had been almost a week since the landship had been seen last. This would never deter the Ash Lords, though. They did not fear death. Let in a sea of Furkten blue to wash them out. Wolves of the Phoenix, charge! And so the wolves charged the tower, with blades in hand, as the first wave of greencoats sprouted up over the edges of the trench and let loose a rain of fire. They're all dead. They just don't know it yet, 99 thought as he ducked behind a boulder. It was ice cold to the touch when he leaned against it. Eventually, the barrage felt silent long enough for a pair of heartbeats to pulse within him. He continued his charge up the incline. The first wave had just reached the trench in time for him to watch it all unfold. He would be among the second. Scarred, pale men descended into the cleft in the earth, any injury lost on them as they surged forward. The occasional gray beard was among the Beltans, but any experience that they might have shared did not save them. Boys turned in the cold faces of the wolves, their hands licking desperately at the sides of the trench as they struggled to escape. Those who stood their ground soon scrambled over their own kin until they heard the war horn. Orcs! The greencoat shouted. The Empire is lost! That horn could only mean orcs! The Beltan spoke true. They appeared on the southern side of the bridgehead. 99 heard the sound as he pulled his blade free from a dying soldier. A mighty bellow rising into the sky like the scream of a mountain. He ascended a wooden scaffold to get a better look as his brothers spread out inside the trench. The blast from their war horn only underscored the roar rising from their leader's mount. A great horned bear with stark white fur, a scar across one milky eye. Its master sitting 10 feet in the air upon a saddle. The orc had gray skin, gray eyes, gray furs, and grayer still was his heart. The beaded tusk burst from his lower jaw. Upon his head rested a crown of teeth from a dozen different meat-eating predators. Behind the chieftain was his brood, 100 legions of warriors, all with their own mounts, armor, and weapons, come together for a great feast. The ivory army of the Pale Shadow Enclave. In the wake of the shadow, an ocean of green melted away into the country. As what was left of the remnant army withered. As a trophy, they raised the right tower at the bridgehead. The prisoners were rounded up again, most of them civilians left behind by the soldiers. They were lined up along the riverbed for the Enclave, to have their honor of cleansing them. 99 could taste the bile in his mouth watching it all unfold. Women, children, old men, sick men, the wounded, the dying. No one was spared. This river will turn to blood, 99 thought, shuddering, when a woman wearing a chain with the same silver eagle As the little belt-hand girl's hairpin was brought forward, his chest tightened. A voice rose up from the back of the wind, whispering to him, "I love you." The smoky scent of his wife's hair returned to him, just then filling his mind with color. He remembered the touch of her lips, the softness of her skin. There we go. But her words fell away before he could catch them. He could still taste his love for her, deep down, even after 100 lifetimes. For half a heartbeat, he could almost make out her face before the wind took it. He thought he could see it. Ooh, good, more commercials, my favorite. Holy smokes, dude. How do people do this for hours at a time? It's not even been 2 hours. I'm a little baby back whiny boy. And skip. Thank the love of God. Okay, there we go. He thought he could see it, even now, somewhere in the face of this woman with the silver eagle necklace. Then the Enclave warrior ran his knife across her neck. He saw only his own face where the orcs had once been. The twin moons burned white and pink in the sky, bearing the silent witness as they approached the sleeping village. Even at night, 99 could see his breath each time his chest descended. They spread out, each group to a different building. Some had thatched roofs, some shingled, some earthen and green with moss. By the time he reached his designated house on the far side, most were aflame. They were split into groups of 5, so an orc, 2 reptilians, and a fellow wolf accompanied him. The memory of his love rang in his ears like music. As he approached the door, "I love you," she whispered to him. The dragon and her questions returned as well, but somehow he couldn't make out the words. A cold fist swallowed up one of his pauldrons, and he traced it back to his companion orc. "You blue skin are just a corpse," he said with a broken accent. "Move, dog." The orc thrust 99 aside, tusks quivering with laughter as a white reptilian came crashing through the oaken frame.
Coward!
The lizard hissed as they poured through. He was the last one inside, each of his comrades lustily sniffing out anything valuable, and any signs of life at different ends of the estate. "You search downstairs, corpse man," the lit black reptilian insisted with a mocking tone. 99 only frowned as he made his way through their savage ballet towards the stairway. He could hear his fellow wolf of the Phoenix scoff somewhere behind him. "If you ever see me wandering around like that, just burn my body." The sound of laughter died behind the settler door as 99 closed it and stepped into the darkness. He could see the fires burning through the green stained glass window of the basement. A shadow detached itself from the corner and advanced on him. It moved so quickly that he barely had time to raise his hands. A spatter of wet and warm peppered his face, and he realized the shadow had stopped. 99 saw a blade growing out of the back of his hand. The number of the unit it was assigned to etched in the side. 429199, he realized. The little belt-hand girl's face flashed in his mind, confused and afraid. As the cellar door was pushed open behind him, her freckles stood out beneath those dark, angry eyes in the light. "She means to kill me," he thought. "Look at this!" the white called out, trying to push past 99. "Out of my way, dog!" Something came alive deep down inside him, a long dead ember rekindling something forgotten. Lorn, he whispered. "What?" was all she had time to say before the wolf thrust his bladed hand into her eye and pinned her against the wall with all her weight. The belt-hand girl fell backwards in the scuffle, but after a half-dozen more thrusts in different places, the white dragon went weak and collapsed in a wheezing shiver. As the life drained out of her, he found himself speaking again. My name. A smile brought light to his face, and then he thought, my name is Verlorn Hatorin. When the black discovered what had happened, he let out a shriek. Verlorn took him by the cloak and forced him tumbling end over end down the stairs, landing at the bottom with a wet crunch. He was already upon him with a dagger, rising and falling before the reptilian knew what was happening. A shot rang out from above, and a pink mist painted the wall in front of him, the black dragon gurgling underneath. Ignoring the fire surging in his torso, Verlorn spun and charged up the stairs towards his fellow wolf and attacker. As he exploded from the cellar, the orc reappeared, and soon they were on the ground slashing and smashing at each other. They came to rest with the orc on top with a dagger buried into the hilt in his chest. He let out a bestial roar, spraying ribbons of blood across Verlorn's face. He ignored it, drawing the orc's own long knife from its sheath and drove it through his neck. He didn't die right away, but there was no time to dwell on it. His brother had witnessed it all and stood wide-eyed as Verlorn rose again. He had lost his helm at some point in the struggle. It wasn't until he felt a cold breeze across his wet, spindly hair that he noticed. He is staring at my eye, Verlorn realized then, but must have given something away by his expression. His brother spun and broke off through the ransacked house with intent. If I let him go, then she is already dead, he reminded himself with a growing dread in the pit of his stomach. The red dragon's voice returned to him, whispering in his ear, How many have you killed? The red dragon's voice, his brother had stumbled over a fallen chair, and Verlorn was already in motion. Then he was clutching at the man as he desperately tried to crawl away. Then he felt his own hands striking at his brother's face, wrapping tight around his throat. He clutched savagely, with increasing desperation. Verlorn saw sweat drip from the end of his nose and chin onto his brother's now purple face. He felt the man's fingers let up. They grew weaker, tired, resigned, until finally, his brother went limp beneath him, with that accusing look of fear frozen upon his face. Forgive me, guys. Need a second to take a drink. Back to it. Verlorn stood, chest heaving as he took in the hot splatters of red set against the icy milk of his hands. The phoenix returns, hotter and brighter, he thought, remembering the words of his company. He heard the small sound of the little belt-hand girl's voice somewhere behind him, but didn't know the words. As he turned, he found her pointing with huge emerald eyes. Only then did he remember the pain, and looked down to find his coat stained black from the last gift his brother had given him. Goodbye kisses are the coldest of all, my brother, he thought, shivering. Verlorn turned to a lantern still burning at the window, and smashed it over the wooden wall in a wash of flames. He was still shivering when he took the little belt-hand girl into his arms, but began sweating as he held her close and fled the village. They welcomed Verlorn into the camp when they saw the little girl, and treated his wound when they saw the blood. I will come for you tonight, he had promised, unsure if she even understood. The little belt-hand girl's face had become an enigma, a rigid puzzle to be solved. This war has frozen her heart, Forlorn thought, as a medic wrapped a bandage tight around his torso. And who could blame her? I have taken everything from her. He felt a hot prick in his temples, and his mind's eye was forced open again. She loved the smell of the summer grass and flowers. He remembered, recalling the memory of riding through the countryside on horseback with his wife. We raised horses. We raised horses and our beautiful baby girl. He could still feel the leather beneath his thighs and the feeling of the wind burning his cheeks. That night, when most of the camp was asleep, he slipped the girl free from her holding cell. The guard had been sleeping, so it was easy to sheath his blade into his own heart. They made it to the stables unseen, but as Verlorn strapped the little belt-hand girl to the back of a beautiful black destrier, a night of ash blocked their path out of the stables. His shadow engulfed the room, tracing his silhouette, a fine icy silver in the moonlight. The horses stirred as he approached. The Lord's voice was frigid and shrill, filling the entire stable. My scouts informed me of a stray dog that ran off with a delicious little lamb. Each step was a comet crashing into the straw and dirt floor, armor clattering together. I can't have my wolves go hungry now, can I? His powered weapon surged to life with a blue eruption of moonlight, hissing and crackling with anticipation. Verlorn felt his lips move and heard his own voice before he realized he was speaking. A knight of ash who only needs the holy powered weapons of the Republic to put down a wounded wolf. He forced a smile to salt the wound. Frowning, the knight let his weapon die and slung the rifle back over his shoulder. It would be a waste, it's true, he shrugged his shoulders. It matters not how one puts down a dog, only that it is put down. His smile spread too wide beneath that crowned skull helm. Fear not, we shall reclaim you, body and soul, my child. In the blink of an eye, the silver-trimmed silhouette of the knight was gone, and bony cold hands wrapped around Verlorn's throat. Oh, good. Music. Oh, this may be my last story of the night. I'm fading a little bit. Had a pretty busy day, but alas, loving it so far. In the blink of an eye, the silver-trimmed silhouette of the knight was gone, and the bony hands wrapped tight around Verlorn's throat. They moved so unnaturally in the darkness, he thought, choking. A fist came crashing down into his bandaged wound. Then he was airborne, and the ground rose up to embrace him. A red flower bloomed on the white bandages around his torso as he scrambled out of the stable. In a burst of shadow, the knight was already on him, smashing with frozen fists. One after the other, each blow was calculated and seemed to find gaps in his defense. The muscle memory must have taken control, because Verlorn caught one of the blows and catapulted the knight into the air. The Ash Lord landed hard, but was already recovering when he descended on him. A wave of warm satisfaction flowed through him as he landed the first heavy strike on the knight's nose, feeling it buckle beneath his fist. Verlorn was thrown back and had to deflect more of the Lord's probing attacks as the stain on his bandage spread out. They are relentless as winter, he thought, that sick feeling building in his stomach again. The sound of hooves echoed, directionless, and he saw the knight's frozen eyes come alive. Before he knew what was happening, Verlorn felt his fingers clasp together around the Lord's torso. The knight got 2 heavy headbutts in before his crowned helm went flying, and the belt-hand girl, astride her charcoal mount, came trampling over both of them. The world went white, then dark. He felt the snow sucking the warmth from his face and fingers. Then he looked up. He saw the Ash Lord struggling on the ground with a shattered arm as he gasped for lungfuls of air. His dagger had been dislodged in the chaos, and Verlorn found himself moving again as his body screamed in protest. He remembered the knight's pupils tightening as he pushed the blade down into his neck, the gasp and shudder as he twisted, and the warm red tears that spilled down over his fingers as the Lord began shivering. He found the little Beltan girl watching every second when he looked up and didn't hesitate to join her as they fled into the countryside. When he looked at his bandage again, the red flower had blossomed into a field of black from the saturation. Verlorn tried to maintain control for as long as he could. But after a time, he had to relinquish the reins to the girl. Somewhere in this direction is Ejmik, their capital, he thought, fading in and out of consciousness. Someone among them must know a way to get the girl to safety. A coughing fit interrupted his thoughts. A scarlet smear across his hand greeted him when he wiped away his mouth. Maybe she can lead a good life. The memory of war lingered wherever they went, but they made it to the suburbs of Eshmik on the third day, just as the bombing began. Barely clinging to life, Verlorn could make out Greencoats riding up. They shouted something and raised their rifles when they saw the blue of his cloak, then lowered them when they saw the little Beltan girl shivering in his arms. Then the world went dark, and the snow embraced him once again. Oh. Howdy, y'all. Thanks for sticking with me. Not quite done with this chapter. Oh, shoot. There we go. Not quite done with this chapter. Let's see how much further this one is. I think it's a longer one. Let's see. Okay, looks like maybe 3 or 4 pages left. Thanks for sticking with me. We'll get through this. Woo! Energy. Pinch myself. It had been several days of siege on the capital, but they allowed Verlorn to recover in a makeshift shelter beneath a church at the heart of the city. Others were there too, including the little Beltan girl. She would not leave when we found you. Oh wait, sorry. I gotta do this right. Let's see. She would not leave when we found you, a nurse said as she stitched him up, her accent thick.
When the cold comes, let us cling to what warm keeps us.
Verlorn knew the truth of her words. They would never stop until the Empire was just a memory. Even if they would somehow kill every one of them, a fresh storm would arrive next season, and every one after. Even worse was the increasing decay of the city, as the bomb brigades delivered their blessings day and night. It is hopeless, he thought. I was a fool to bring her here. But what else could I have done? He felt even more of a fool that night when a pair of greencoats were brought in to recover and stand guard over the refugees. They took interest in his stained jacket, jacked and blue cloak, but Verlorn had long ripped the inverted phoenix of Firkten from his breast. They barked at him in their language and then laughed to each other, which he expected. But then they took an interest in her. They exchanged with each other in Belton, laughing. When the girl grew uncomfortable, the nurse had to intervene. They broke her cheek for it, leaving her in a snoring heap at the edge of the room. Verlorn rose to his feet, pushing the stained iron wolf helm down over his face. His dark eye glistened as he stood there, wordless. I have killed many of you, he thought, but none with this look in their eyes. The greencoats chuckled to each other before advancing on the Beltan girl. He stepped in front of her, his face tightening with increasing frustration. The greencoats frowned. City lost, one of them was able to say through his accent, reaching to push him aside. Move! Vorlorn moved. He broke the first man's finger when he reached out, head-butting him in the nose. As the man reeled around on the ground, the other leapt onto Vorlorn's back to choke him. Vorlorn let his hands fall to the sides, reaching behind the man for the man's belt as he wrenched at his neck. The handle of the greencoat's dagger sprouted from one of his eyes, where Vorlorn had planted it, and he fell limp. The first man, still clutching at his gushing nose, never saw Vorlorn coming. He ended it quickly with the same blade. When the guards rotated, it took the help of the little girl and the nurse together to vouch for what had happened. After that, he turned his cloak inside out, so that only the black inlay showed. Throughout the course of the day, more refugees had poured into the shelter. Something was different now, and Vorlorn suspected they had finally breached the city. A young greencoat's missing an ear had taken to conversing with Vorlorn with more grace than the rest. Ah, yes, the eagles in exile we call ourselves. His voice had a nobility to it, and a warmth drawing him in. We are those who will remember when all this is but a memory. Vorlorn inclined his head, stuffing a heel of hard bread between his lips. This boy exile is admirable, he thought. Unable to remember why he first joined the military, or even when. Even now, the boy continued, the eagles are massing in the trees. 50,000 strong we are, and some say we'll be twice that by the time Ejmik is divided between the Enclave and the Republic. He frowned, scratching at the pink crater where his ear had once been. Nearly pissed myself when I learned Lot invaded Ferkten from the north. Then I did when I heard they had turned back. He laughed bitterly inside. Lat pushed all the way to the river Rosig, even with their own landship. The boy's jaw clenched, and Vorlorn could see the moisture pooling in his eyes. Curse them for their cowardice. And the orcs take them all after they're through with us. Thala, too, for all their promises. Yet they give us only words. He spat, stuffing his own serving of bread into his mouth, and then spoke with crumbs raining down. That's why I like you, Wanderer. You don't make promises, you don't cower, even when we accuse you of murder, and you still protect that girl as if she's your own blood. Vorlorn stared as the boy's words echoed in his mind. Frustrated, he found himself already speaking. How many have you killed, boy? The green exile flushed. None, but I could have once. I had the wolf right in my sights, but one of my brothers took him first. He caught a glimpse of Vorlorn's unchanged expression before continuing. The captain tells me I'm more useful with a flute than a rifle, that I was meant to sing songs and write stories. Suddenly, he remembered. He could hear his own voice booming inside his head, echoing a thousandfold as it danced with the boy's words until it reached a fever pitch. They will sing songs of me, my love, Vorlorn had said to his nursing wife as he climbed atop his armored gray Garan. They will sing and tell the tale of the undying army. Oop, I'm going to drop that. Who marched in and snuffed out the fires of the eagle before they could consume the world. He remembered the cold iron of the helm as he first slid it down over his face. Sing to her, my love, and I shall soon return home. Then the memory faded, shattered by an explosion rocking the foundations of the shelter. He was staring at the younger version of himself. You look like you've seen a ghost.
The green
There we
goddess
go.
from Panera.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, and music's back. Good. Verlorn stood, brushing debris away from his cloak. Is all that you have told me true? The exile nodded, rising to meet him. To the best of my knowledge, sir. He took the boy by the scruff of his cloak and pulled him in. You can get the girl to safety. Yes, he said with confidence, almost indignant. Verlorn threw him back and began gathering their things. Then we must go. A man of action, like I said. The exile laughed, shrugging as he rubbed the base of his neck. Why not? We're as good as dead anyway. They stepped into the valleys of Eshmik just as a pair of reptilians charged by. They didn't see us, he told himself. They'll just keep going. Stay focused. The sky had gone black, eclipsing the sun with smoke pouring from the dying city as if it bled shadows. What little air was breathable smelled of blood, fire, and sweat. A nut-brown horse awash in flames came screaming by, with an orc and two laughing wolves of the phoenix in tow. Together, they made it to the next alley, and the one after that. A green cloak walked by in some sort of trance, one arm short, continuing as if the three of them were not even there. To the wall, the boy exile called out over a round of shells. Make for that crumbling section of wall. When a gray-scaled reptilian spotted them, Verlorn had pounced before he could escape to tell anyone. He found a scavenged Beltan's officer pistol with 3 unused rounds and a masterfully crafted ivory long knife, where he searched the body. When Verlorn saw a brother of the Phoenix staring at him as he hunched over the corpse, he got a lucky shot between the eyes before the man could react. 2 unused rounds, he mused. When they reached the wall, it became clear they were in for a hard climb. From a distance, the gap looked sweeping and gradual, but up close it was taller than any of the buildings in the town, too steep to walk. A knight of ash, an orc, and a blue-scaled elite bloodguard found them just as they began. Go! Verlorn insisted, turning to face them. He fired a shot, but found only air with it. The Ash Lord chuckled. Yes, you better listen to your dog. Oh, how he barks so loudly. The Green Knight paused his climb and flared. He bites too, he insisted. Oh, I have no doubt. I heard the story of the knight you felled, but he was a fool to let you goad him. Her frigid smile glistened in the firelight of the city as she gestured to her companions. I did not realize it was a woman. All right, let's try that again. This is why I've brought you a dragon and a bear. They bite harder. The two charged forward with blades in hand as the green boy and the Beltan girl struggled up the remains of the wall. Verlorn had already loaded his final shot and let loose into the elite's torso. He avoided the first strike, but the orc's sword slipped between his ribs. Hissing in pain, he smashed the orc in the face with a blow with the brow of his helm. It hurts. It burns, he thought frantically. Why does it hurt so much? Verlorn unsheathed the blade from his torso in a splatter of red, and a cry that echoed off the side of the burning buildings. Stealing a glance at the two climbing the ruins, he saw they were making progress. If I could just hold out long enough for them, he promised himself. Verlorn never made it to the orc before he wounded the elite, or before the wounded blue elite pushed a spear into his back. He broke it with his blade as a response, but cried out from the impact. He swung wildly at the bloodguard, but soon the orc had planted a second iron kiss between his shoulders. He was growing weaker now. Covered head and heel to heal in black and red from his own blood. He stole another glance. They made it, he thought, as they disappeared over the top. They made it, and now I can finally rest. What's so amusing? The knight shrieked, her voice a cold knife in the burning air. Verlorn never realized he had been smiling, but no longer had the strength to answer. No matter. See the body dismembered. Toss the remains into the fire when you're finished. All he could smell was blood. Hooves echoed into the growling inferno of the dying city. And the last thing Verlorn saw was his own face looking back from the reflection of the orc's dark eyes. Verlorn, he thought. My name is Verlorn. The end of the second chapter and second story from the anthology that is Mortal Descent by A.C. Pritchard. Cripes, man. What a heavy story. That's beautiful, man. Ugh, crap. I'm too tired to be eloquent about it. Book good, story good. Narration getting worse as I grow more tired. All right. Well, thank you everybody for Don't forget to smack that but yeah, there you go. Thank you, Chatsu. How you doing, man? Oh, hey, still got 5 people watching. All right, guys. I did have another story I wanted to read, but I can barely keep my eyes open and my voice is fading fast. So I'll probably draw it to a close here soon. Any questions, any comments, anything at all? I am here at your disposal. Also, welcome, Chatsu. Oh, Skunks, no way. You made it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I think I was a little better when the night was fresh, but I tried to bring it back at the end there. I kept on having to like pinch my arm so that I did fine. Hey, Guilty. Thanks for sticking around, man. I really appreciate it. Actually, I'm going to take a second and praise Guilty. He is at every live stream of every IronAge person I'm ever able to watch and catch live. Every time I get there, I'm like, hey, I'm probably the first. And then I see Guilty in the comments. He's like, hey, Kahuna, I'm here. Aloha. I'm like, F, this guy's everywhere. But no, Guilty is an awesome guy. And he doesn't have any books or so to speak of, but his presence is overwhelming. And it's always pleasant to know that he's there. So Guilty, thanks for sticking out, man. Thanks for sticking around, man. You're awesome. And then we got Skunks, the artist himself, the man, the myth, the legend. And we have Chatsu, the memer himself. Perhaps I would say you're probably one of the strongest memers in the entire A Drink with Crazy Gilded, at least. Yeah, no, for weeks at a time, almost every single day, he will have some sort of shill for his books and his stories, and they almost always make me laugh. Fantastic work, Chatsu. There you go, Guilty. Wait, we need better clapping. Ooh, a little AMSR. There you go. Alas. Let's see. I got a lot of responses to my Twitter post in regards to different stories I want to read. I wanted to read 4 tonight. Alas, I'm fading too fast and I don't have the voice for it, so I'll have to return another night. But the next story I'll read, just because I was supposed to read it today, is going to be Let's see, where is it? It's Shining Tomorrow, Volume 1, Shadowheart by Raleigh Nyanzi. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but that's a story I haven't gotten to read yet. Alas, that will be the first one I read next time. Thank you to everyone who came. Thank you for hopefully enjoying my narration. And if anyone has anything they want me to read, any sample of their work, any chapter, I'm happy to not only read it, but I will read it in whichever voice that you can imagine. at least to the best of my ability. So, this has been the Ultimate Kahuna. Thank you to all. I have shared. I will attach, once I am done with this video, I will attach all of the necessary links for everybody's book that I read here tonight. And I appreciate you all. What? Everything using Brave browser? No. I did use Brave browser on my last computer, but I haven't downloaded it on this computer. It seems to work just fine for me, honestly. But yeah, if it cuts down on the ads, that's a good idea, Skunks. But alas, this has been a live reading from the Ultimate Kahuna. All hail the Iron Age! Godspeed and woo!